You're on a diet, take control. This sucks. Hello beautiful minds! Welcome to my channel. I am Saika and today I'd like to share to you what my diet was like to lose 45 pounds. Due to popular demand, and I think it's a pretty relevant topic when it comes to my weight loss, I'm going to be sharing to you what my diet was like before and what my diet is like now. I'll be focusing on the diet I did once I started doing Chloe Ting workouts, so you guys have an idea of what I did together with her exercise to lose the 45 pounds. Just to preface this, the time I started doing her exercises and being serious about my diet was April of 2020, so this was the start of the lockdown. Also, pre-lockdown, I've also already been doing intermittent fasting, meaning I only eat for an 8-hour window and then for the 16 hours I fast. So I don't eat breakfast, I only eat lunch and dinner. This was the scheduling I followed during my diet and even up to now. With that being said, without further ado, let's get into it. So when I started doing my exercises and being serious about it, I knew I also had to diet in order to maximize my results. My first 3 months of dieting were definitely the harshest, and I would even say up to a point that I did starve myself, which is definitely not a good thing, and I do not recommend any of this. I'm just sharing to you guys what my story was or how I started about my diet. Don't follow this, but rather take it as a lesson as to what you shouldn't do at the start. But yeah, I'm just gonna share it anyway. Anyways, to avoid my overeating and to basically cut down on my cravings, I omitted a lot of things from my food choices. This was really hard, but the lockdown also really helped because it refrained me from going out and buying food and buying unnecessary things from the grocery. So these are the things I restricted myself from eating at the start. All processed sweets, no chocolates, no ice cream, no cookies, no cakes and all the like, chips and snacks, sweetened drinks, and white rice. I gave those all up. So what I did, I basically overate 2 weeks before I started my diet because I know I was gonna cut all of these things, and then once I started, I just went cold turkey on all of the things I restricted myself. So the first 2 weeks, once I started my diet, was the hardest as well because I went through a sort of withdrawal stage from all the cravings, from all the sweets and the like. So yeah, it was very hard, but I pushed through it. Knowing what I couldn't eat, let's now go to the things that I could eat. Again, because I do intermittent fasting, I only eat lunch and dinner. I don't eat breakfast. So my lunch would usually consist of fish. So this could be salmon, tuna, sardines and the like. Chicken, but again baked, paired with egg or corn and carrots, and black coffee so that it's 0 calories. Sometimes I would just also eat bread with black coffee for lunch. As for dinner, it's just straight up a plate of fried sweet potatoes and water. That's it. That was my dinner. I also ate more fruits, usually mangoes, bananas, grapes, apples, and I would eat them lunch or dinner. It really didn't matter. If I wanted to eat some fruits, then I would eat some fruits. So that's where my sweets would come from. And if you notice, there's 0 vegetables involved because this was the time I still wasn't ready to eat some veggies and the like. If you guys know my history of food, you know why. So my diet was very imbalanced, it was highly restrictive and totally unhealthy. But it gets worse from there. This is the point where I remind you that what I'm about to share is something I definitely do not recommend. You should never do this to yourself. I'm just sharing it because it's part of my journey, but you should never try it. Pinky swear on me on this one. Is it clear as my hand? Yeah. Pinky swear on me. Do not do this. Say it with me. You will not do this. Okay? What I'm about to share is just my experience, but you shouldn't do it. I'm not advocating for it. I just did it because I was still naive about my diet and I was just looking for my way and it was the wrong way. Okay? Okay. So after 2 weeks of cutting down a lot of the things from my food choices and barely eating from what I could eat, I still felt like I wasn't losing enough weight, or at least faster. I wasn't seeing results the way I wanted to see results, or at least how fast I wanted to see them. So I did the egg diet. If you guys don't know what the egg diet is, it's in your discretion to research it. I don't recommend doing it, okay? It's a fad diet. You should never do any kind of fad diets because you'll end up usually just going through a vicious cycle of over-restricting and then binging, because that definitely happened to me and it happens to a lot of people, and I don't want that to happen to anyone else, okay? So yeah, I did the egg diet. But even then, I still made it more restrictive. So yeah, it was crazy. So I would eat 2 eggs, a slice of apple, and green tea each for lunch and dinner. That's it. And that's only around 500 calories. That's way below what I'm supposed to be eating for my weight and height. I could only last for 5 days. I couldn't go any longer. It's supposed to be 10 days, but I segmented it. I could only do 5 days and I did it for 2 weeks, and it was the worst. Mentally, emotionally, it was just really bad for my psyche. Again, it just made it into a vicious cycle because I would be over-restricting myself. I'd be so hungry, and then all I could think about would be food. So what happened was I would end up binging on the weekends and just thinking and thinking about it, and then on Monday over-restricting myself again, and then binge again on the weekends. And that's a very vicious cycle. You shouldn't do that, okay? It's not healthy. It's not the right way to go. I lost a lot in those 2 weeks, but it was mentally, emotionally damaging for me. I also felt physically weak. I couldn't imagine myself going through that forever in my life. It was absolutely miserable. And it's not the right way to go if I wanted a more sustainable way of being healthy, of changing, my lifestyle. It's definitely a very toxic thing. So don't do fad diets. I absolutely do not recommend it, and that's why I stopped doing it after 2 weeks, because I just couldn't do it. It was too much. It was damaging. I know it wasn't the right way to go about my diet and my exercise if I wanted it for the long term. So I gave up that diet, thank God, and went back to my restrictive but at least better diet, in the sense that I had more food choices than egg and just apple. I seriously couldn't eat eggs anymore. Boiled eggs, I couldn't eat them anymore. Even until now, I can't eat them by themselves, or even an apple. Like, it took me so long to get used to the taste again because it honestly grossed me out. So that's another detrimental effect of doing fad diets and eating just one food every day for like a long period of time. So don't do it. Now, knowing the things that I ate or lack thereof, let's now go to what I drank. So I drank lots and lots of water. Water is life. So in order to quell that hunger, because sometimes the hunger pains or the hunger pangs you get are just you being thirsty or your body asking to be quenched with water or liquids and whatnot, just drink lots of water. It made me feel full. And it also quenched a bit of my hunger or my thirst. I definitely drank a lot of water. Aside from that, I only ever drank black coffee because it's 0 calories. And again, no sodas and the like. I would also like to note before we move on that I never strictly calorie counted because I'm honestly so lazy to do it, and it involves math and I'm bad at math. Yay! So what I did based on like the foods that I have, I would research on the same food and the similar way it's being prepared, and then look at the calories of that online and more or less say that, okay, then it's probably the same calories. And then I would research on other foods that I would eat and their calories online, and basically just winged it from there. So I basically have an idea roughly how much the calories of this food is and that food is and blah blah blah, and just basically winged it. I never strictly calorie counted at all. In general, the start of my diet, months 1 to 3, were very unhealthy, highly restrictive, and definitely something you should never follow or try to emulate in your own diet. More so, I developed a bad relationship with food. I mean, I already had a bad relationship with food, but it morphed into grouping foods as bad and good. And I was so afraid of eating certain types of food because I thought that I would just lose all my progress and gain all the fat by simply eating one slice of cake or one slice or one piece of chocolate. So that's really bad. It's a very toxic way of thinking, and I definitely developed that at the start. Although I do believe that it's okay to be restrictive at the start of your diet, especially if you're trying to get used to a more controlled way of eating, if you're trying to be mindful of what you're eating and trying to calorie count and the like. But don't be overly restrictive and don't punish yourself too much. No matter what size you are, you should never punish yourself by overly restricting and overly cutting and starving yourself to death. Okay, let's move on. By month 4, and when the world was starting to reopen, I decided to start experimenting and also incorporating more vegetables into my diet. I really couldn't imagine restricting myself with so many things because at the end of the day, I really like food. And I really like tasting and trying things out. So yeah, I couldn't imagine just cutting it all off. And I also knew that vegetables were very important if you wanted a healthier way of living. So I definitely knew I had to incorporate it in my diet. Eat your vegetables, kids! So I began baking my own lunches. So I found that baking is actually a healthy way of doing it because there's less oil, and it's also easier to do because you just pop it in the oven. And I also just really like baking, so it was more convenient for me. I also ate more or less the same things but prepared them better and incorporate vegetables that I sort of already like cabbages, carrots, green beans, what else? Spinach and the like into my diet slowly. And eventually I started tasting other kinds of vegetables like broccoli and like, and put them into the foods that I like so that they could mask the taste and texture, and basically so that I can get used to the foods or these vegetables without gagging or throwing them up. So this was the time I started making my own meals and experimenting. Because of this newfound openness, I also extended this by meal prepping. I researched more affordable, easy to make, but healthy recipes and how I could prepare them and do them and basically plan out my whole month's worth of eating. I also lessened my level of strictness when it comes to my food choices. So I would eat my white rice from time to time, but again, in moderation. I would eat my chocolate if I wanted to, maybe indulge in a bit of bacon here and there. By around the 6th to 7th month, I felt that I had more control of my urges and impulses, especially when it came to sweets. So I reintroduced myself with the things that I totally banned myself from eating, and I noticed that I could say no, that I could stop myself from eating when I feel full, and sometimes I would even get sugar highs when I'm eating too much sugar, and therefore I stop and don't finish it. This was the time I slowly repaired my relationship with food again and basically started to incorporate this idea that I can eat anything and everything, but again, in moderation. Now I'm still working on my meal prepping skills because I want to be more efficient in my cooking and I want to be able to practice more my skills in the kitchen, so that's definitely something I'm still doing. I've also adopted a better relationship with food. Again, I don't restrict myself from anything. I eat in moderation. I don't starve myself, but I also don't stuff myself. I can also negotiate with my food choices, like if I eat this, do I really want it, or is it because I'm emotional or I'm going through something and the like. I can really think about my food choices, But at the end of the day, if I want to eat a cup of rice, I'll eat it. If I want to gorge on a mid-rare steak, I'll do it. It's absolutely fine once in a while. I would say I eat mindfully now. I take note of what I eat and I always portion my sizes. So I definitely know more or less what amount would make me full or what food is enough for me. However, I do make sure to at least eat vegetables 3 to 4 times a week. I eat fruit once or twice a day, and I make sure that my plate has at least 2 to 3 colors in it so that it's more balanced. So those are my only parameters. Also, just a tip, since the start of my journey, in order to portion my sizes, I used smaller plates. So it can help in reducing or at least making your mind think that you're eating a lot if your food is in a smaller plate, because it would seem fuller. So that's also a tip you can use, as well as drinking lots of water, like what I did and I'm still doing until now. My diet journey definitely had a lot of ups and downs. The start of my journey was definitely the darkest time. I obviously lacked a lot of research. I was very naive about what I should be doing. It was highly restrictive. It was totally unhealthy, and I definitely don't recommend you guys doing what I did at the start of my journey. It's true that my progress did slow down once I stopped being highly and overly restrictive, but I'd rather have slow and steady progress than crash and burn by losing 10 pounds in 1 week and go back to binging at the end of that week. That's just fueling a vicious cycle. I still have a lot to learn, and I'm quite excited to try different foods, different ways of preparing things, and if you guys want, I'll be sharing them with you all. But I'm fine with just taking baby steps as long as I'm going in the right direction. Again, guys, slow and steady wins the race. Progress is never linear. This has been my diet journey, and if you guys can get anything from it, it's that fad diets aren't worth it. Don't try it at all. You can do so much better by simply planning a diet that works for you for the better. We're all about healthier, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and holistically. Again, all our diet journeys are different. I just wish at the end of the day, you guys end up building a healthier and better relationship with foods. Good luck with your diet journey, and I hope you guys stay healthy. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you have more questions, do comment them down below and share your stories, and let's start a conversation. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Babush!